Good day, students. Welcome to Mathgotserved.com. In this clip, we're going to be going over how to find the zeros of polynomial functions. Question 9 reads, the zeros of the function f of x equals x to the third minus 9x squared are. So before we start, let's go over what the zeros of a function means. All right, so let's recollect this important point. The zeros of a function are what? They are the x values that do something. All right? They're the x values that cause the function to equal what? Guess. To equal 0. That's why it's called zeros, right? So any input value that upon substitution into the function causes the function to have an output of 0, that particular input is called a zero of that function. All right? So let's take a look at the steps that will guide our problem solving process. So when you find the zeros of a function, first thing you want to do is you want to set the function equal to 0. Okay? You're setting yourself to solve an equation. And then next, you're going to factor the function f of x if possible. If it's already in its factored state, then you just skip step 2. All right? And then when you're done with that, you're going to then use the zero product property to solve. Okay, so use the zero product property to solve that equation f of x equals 0, where f of x is the factored state. Alrighty, so we have the original function f of x equals x to the third minus 9x squared. So what we're going to do first, following the steps, is set that function equal to 0. We want to solve this equation. We want to see what x value causes this function to have an output of 0. Step number 1 is done. Step 2, we're now going to factor. Let's factor the left side. This cubic binomial, let's factor it completely. So we want to pull out the GCF to help us with that. We're going to decompose both terms. All right, x to the third is x times x times x minus, if you break down 9 into prime factors, it's 3 times 3. And then break down x squared is x times x equals 0. Now what's common on the left and right side of this minus sign? These two terms, what's common? That's your GCF. All right. So you notice that to the left side we have 2 x's, bam, bam. Right, on the right side we have 2 x's, so we can factor out x squared. All right, so factor those out. X times x. When you factor out x times x, it's as though you're dividing. Okay, so when you divide this equation by x times x, this x, let's change the color. This x and this x factor out to this one, and then this x and this x right here factor out to that one right here. Okay, so don't forget, whenever you are factoring out, you're basically dividing. Okay, so we're dividing this, the left side of this equation, by x times x. When we carry out that division, so when those divide out, they just left with 1 and 1. When we carry out that factorization process, we're going to be left with x minus 3 times 3, which is 9. Bam. Equals 0. Let's multiply the GCF that we factored out, which is x squared times x minus 9 equals 0. Okay, so now we are done factoring. We factored it completely. We are not going to use the zero product property to finish this off. Okay, we're done with step 2. Now step 3 uses zero product property. So if the product of two factors equals 0, the first one is equal to 0, or the second one is equal to 0. So you take the first factor, x squared, say that equal to 0. And then the second factor, x minus 9, say that equal to 0 also. All right, on the left side, we have 2 problems to solve now. On the left side, we have x squared equals 0, so we need to get x by itself. To get rid of x squared, we're going to use the inverse of square, which is square root. Okay? When you take the square root of both sides, since you're taking the square root of a square, you have x equals plus or minus 0. Okay? Anytime you take the square root of a square, you add on that plus or minus component. So since 0 has no orientation, we're just going to have 0. 0 doesn't have a sign. And then x minus 9. This one is straightforward. Just simply add 9 to both sides of your equation. And then you have, what do we have here? X equals 9 is the answer. So those are the two zeros for the function. So the zeros are x equals 0 and x equals 9. What does this mean? When you plug in these numbers into the function, your output is going to be 0. And if you graph them, at these points, the graph is going to be hitting the x-axis, because on the x-axis, the function's value is 0. Alrighty, so question 2, number 9 is option number 2. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this presentation. Don't forget to help support our channel. Tons of support resources can be found at mathgotserved.com. Do check it out. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.